Bleach has given us two of the greatest villains in shonen history, and I'm going to tell you exactly why one of them is on a completely different level to the other. Yhwach's cool, he's powerful, but he's not Aizen.
ようこそ私のソウルソサエティへ私の霊圧で自戒しろ滑稽だなやれやれ黒棺が見たいか
What's up everyone, welcome back. With Bleach finally airing, I felt like this was the perfect time to have this combo. Today we're comparing two of the greatest villains in Bleach, Aizen and Yhwach, and how for me personally, Aizen takes the cake as the better villain and is not even close. Now I'm not trying to throw shade on Yhwach, he's cool, but Aizen is just built different. Let's get into it. Let's start at the beginning, because this is where the gap opens up immediately. Yhwach's intro is cool. The idea that he was inside Ichigo's Zanpakuto the whole time as Zangetsu, that the very power Ichigo trained with and relied on was connected to the final villain. It's honestly an interesting reveal on paper, it's a cool idea. But the thing is, for most of the series, that's all there is to him. A threat in the background. You don't feel his presence until he actually shows up in the final arc. Aizen's introduction, on the other hand, is one of the greatest villain reveals ever. You watch him die, you attend his funeral, you feel the loss of one of Soul Society's most respected captains, and you grieve alongside the character. And then later on, he shows up as the mastermind. The moment Aizen takes off his glasses and slicks back his hair is burned into the memory of everyone who watched it. Because he didn't just trick everyone around him, but the audience as well. And that is a masterclass on how to introduce a villain. First impressions matter, and Aizen won before he even said a word. Kyoka Suigetsu versus the Almighty. They're both broken abilities, we're not doubting that. But you gotta admit, one of them is just a bit more interesting. We've got the Almighty, which is basically, I see the future and I rewrite it. It's absolute, it's overwhelming. It's the kind of power that makes fights feel almost pointless because the outcome is predetermined. As a display of raw dominance, it works, but it doesn't leave much room for tension or creativity. Once you know what it does, you know how every encounter with Yhwach ends. Kyoka Suigetsu, however, is completely different. Complete hypnotic suggestion. Anyone who's ever seen the release of his blade has their senses controlled by Aizen permanently. Every single thing you see, hear, touch, taste and feel could be a lie and you literally never know. The reason it's more interesting is because of what it implies. Every fight Aizen has ever been in, every conversation, every moment of the series where he's present, how much of it was real? How much were people experiencing something Aizen constructed specifically for them? It makes you question everything in a way the Almighty simply doesn't. And honestly, there's something poetic about the greatest manipulator in the series having an ability that's literally manipulation taken to its absolute extreme. Aizen's intelligence separates himself not just from Yhwach, but from almost every villain in anime. Aizen planned everything, not weeks in advance, not months, but over 100 years. The Aranka, Hueco Mundo, the Hogyoku, his position in Soul Society, the entire elaborate structure of betrayal and misdirection that unfolds across the first half of Bleach was constructed over a century with the patience of someone who genuinely believes he's operating on a different level to everyone around him. And the terrifying thing is that he's not wrong. Every captain, every commander, the entirety of Soul Society, all of them were pieces on his board, and none of them knew it. He sat in meetings, attended funerals, and performed the role of a beloved captain without a single crack in his performance. There's a specific scene where Aizen reveals to Shinji that he had been manipulating him and his entire crew for years before they even thought to be suspicious of him. The look on Shinji's face in that moment tells you everything. This is someone who thought he was watching Aizen, and the whole time it was Aizen that was playing him. Yhwach is powerful and strategic, and his approach is fundamentally straightforward. He sees the future and he crushes everything in front of him. There's no equivalent moment where you realize the depth of what he was constructing beneath the surface. The layers simply aren't there. Smart villains are scarier than strong ones. Aizen is both, but his intelligence is what makes him unforgettable. There's something about Aizen that commands every scene he's in, regardless of what's happening around him. He speaks and the room changes. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. There's a specific calm to him that reads as someone so certain of their own superiority that urgency is simply beneath them. The scene where he puts the prideful and arrogant Grimmjow in his place still gives me goosebumps whenever I think about it.
どうした？返事が聞こえないぞ。
That's Aura. There's a character so thoroughly established that his actions live on in our memories. Yhwach has an imposing design and a genuine menace. He looks the part and he carries himself with appropriate gravity, but there's a coldness to him that keeps you at a distance rather than pulling you in. You fear Yhwach, but you're fascinated by Aizen. Those are different experiences, and for me personally, fascination makes for the better villain every time. Yhwach has a strong design. The beard, the cape, the overall silhouette reads as someone ancient and powerful, and that works. I've got no complaints about how he looks. But Aizen's design evolution across Bleach is something else. He starts as the composed captain with the glasses and the gentle smile, the appearance of someone completely unthreatening that in hindsight it's its own kind of terrifying. Then he starts transforming, and each stage pushes further into something genuinely unsettling while somehow maintaining that air of complete control. The final form walks a line between beautiful and wrong that not many villain designs manage. The glasses coming off is still one of the most iconic visual moments in this series. It's such a small thing, but it's a massive shift in who you understand this character to be. Aizen's appearance tells his story in a way Yhwach's doesn't quite reach. Now, I said this wasn't putting down Yhwach, and I meant it. Yhwach as a concept is genuinely compelling. The father of the Quincy, an ancient being whose power has shaped the entire world of Bleach from before the story began. That's a mythology worth building around. The reveal connecting him to Ichigo's origin recontextualizes the entire series in a way only the best long-form storytelling can pull off. His relationship with Uryu adds a layer that keeps you guessing, and as a physical presence in the final arc, he delivers the scale of threat the finale demands. The issue isn't that Yhwach is a bad villain, but that Aizen set a standard in the first half of Bleach that's genuinely one of the highest bars any shonen has ever set for an antagonist. Following that was always going to be a difficult task, and Yhwach suffers somewhat from the comparison rather than from any fundamental failure of his own character. Yhwach ends the world. Aizen makes you question whether the world you're seeing is real. One of those is more interesting than the other. The greatest trick Aizen ever pulled was making Soul Society believe he was one of them for 100 years. The second greatest trick was making the entire fanbase spend the first half of Bleach thinking they understood what kind of story they were watching. Yhwach is a worthy final villain. Aizen is a generational one.